Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. Today is going to be the start of my new series that I've been talking about in the past. This is going to be called Shock to the Past. Now, Shock to the Past is going to consist of horror/exploitation films from the 60s, 70s and 80s, and it's going to consist of about 20 episodes. So the reason I'm doing this is because I rarely talk about older films, and I know a few of you are fans of these types of movies, so I'm going to get a little bit of variation and hopefully not only appeal to my loyal viewers, but also another sort of wider audience. So I'm going to broaden out my horizons, and hopefully this is going to be successful. So the first episode, we're going to take a look at Combat Shock. So Combat Shock was an American film released in 1984, directed by Buddy Giovannazzo. And this movie is about Vietnam veterans. So it's about this guy who's come back from the Vietnam War. He's been treated as an outsider. He's been spat on, which is the case with a lot of these Vietnam veterans. And like these Vietnam veterans that were put on the streets, he is living in squalor. So he's got a nagging wife who's telling him he needs a job because they don't have any food. He's got a son, a little baby that is deformed because of the chemicals that this guy had been exposed to in Vietnam, and so he has just basically got a lot of desperation, and that desperation has taken a toll on his mentality. He's starting to get more and more intense, and it basically adds up into a very shocking conclusion that many people say is one of the most shocking in history. So that's the basic sort of premise, and I thought that this movie, the best way I can sum up Combat Shock is that it's very effective, and it's not a great film on a technical value. You know, the acting is pretty bad. I thought the script isn't very good, but I thought that a lot of these negatives were actually used to its positives. It was actually used to its advantage, and I thought it was a very self-aware film. It knew exactly what it was. And so the movie is about the mentality of this guy. He's been put on the outer, he's been put under extreme pressure, and he's about to break. And I thought the really low budget quality to this film helped create that sense of desperation. It helped create that sense of filth. You know, at every corner you feel as though you need a shower, is that all these characters this guy's interacting with are deadbeats. You know, the whole situation is just complete hopelessness. And so there's a lot of suspense that Buddy Giovannazzo manages to create through that sense of, you know, something is going to explode. And that you know exactly, you know that it's going to happen, but you don't know exactly when it's going to happen. And so that's the beauty of the film. It's not trying to give you these really crappy sort of twists. It's not trying to be a movie that is keeping you guessing as to what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen, but the sense of anticipation is the driving force that this film has, and it's the strange, effective quality that the film has. So initially in the film of this low budget, you would think, I'm going to turn this movie off. The acting is not great. The script is not great. You know, it's basically just about a man who's desperate to find a job, and so on the outside, that's boring. But Buddy Giovannazzo has that strange ability to really capture the audience and not let them go until the very end. So on one hand you could say it's a bad film, but on the other hand, how can it be a bad film if it forces you to watch it? And I think the reason why it forces you to watch it is because it's got a very strange vibe to it. It's got a very surreal quality that doesn't just limit itself to the screen, but also absorbs the viewer, and it gives you that strange input that, okay, I'm not sure why I like this film as much as I do. I'm not sure why I'm glued to the screen, and I'm not sure why certain scenes in this film appeal to me a lot more than other scenes. So to me, the most memorable scene in this film is not the end, which a lot of people will say, but it's one scene where this guy is just walking through the streets, and there's a very catchy soundtrack to it. And if you look up on YouTube, it's called Combat Shock Walking Scene. You will know what I mean, in that Buddy Giovannazzo has created something that's just walking, but it's done in a way where it's so strangely captivating. And that's the best way I can, as I said, can sum up the whole film, is that it has that quality where you're not sure why you're so glued to it, but you are. And I think it's just that really odd sort of quirkiness that the film has. There's shades of David Lynch's Eraserhead. There's shades of other films as well that help shape it into creating something that's not great on a technical value, but it just has that strange sort of sense of life to it that just keeps you glued to the screen right up until the very satisfying ending. I will say it's an incredibly bizarre film. It's an incredibly extreme film. The ending is very extreme, very upsetting, but I thought it was a great way to cap off what was a very unsettling kind of atmosphere that the film had, and a very unnerving experience that Buddy Giovannazzo really puts you through. So Rick Giovannazzo was the actual main character. I believe that they were siblings, and so it's a really, it's a family kind of film. Oh, it's not a family film, but it's a family sort of effort, in that they've created something together that I thought was one of the most intriguing and effective films in history. So on one hand, as I said, you have a very cheap film, but on the other hand, you have a very self-aware movie that uses those cheap values to its full advantage. So it's a low-budget, filthy kind of movie, but I think it's a very important film, and it's one that I actually praise more than I basically slander. So it's definitely a movie that you have to be very careful seeing, but I do feel as though this is a movie that does give the impression that lower budget filmmakers of the modern era can still make an effective film. If you have that quality to it, you don't need mega budget, you don't need Michael Bay, the amount of money that Michael Bay has. If you've got a solid story and a very captivating sort of atmosphere to it, you can make something out of nothing, and this is the prime example. So this is why I believe that this movie is very important to horror/exploitation. Alright guys, that's it for the first episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.